Amigos y amigas, another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show is about to start. Welcome to another edition of Monday Night Football, where we talk all about Mexican football, the national team, Mexicans abroad. Like to welcome everyone out there that's already listening to us. We are on time, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go ahead and get started. Hello, I'm Wiso from Footmex Nation. This is an hour-long podcast dedicated to all things Mexican soccer. I found this beanie at my house. I have no idea whose it is. I'm wearing it, so in case it's yours, shoot me a few people at a Super Bowl party. So I'm just gonna wear it. I'll leave that as
around.
Lots. It went crazy. You thought Philly was crazy. My house was crazy. But let's just jump right in. I'll take off. Let's start with the big question of the day, and we would like to go through here everybody's answers. If Juan Carlos Osorio was required to leave one of the following players off the World Cup roster, which would be your choice to stay home and watch it on TV in El Canal de las Estrellas in Mexico or wherever they're at? Is it Oribe Peralta, Rodolfo Pizarro, or Marco Fabian? And let's start with Mr. Cesar Hernandez in San Diego, Tijuana area. Take it away, Cesar. How are you?
Hey, guys. Doing well. I can't wait to join John Arnold's dance party he's got going on over there with the lights. But if I had to leave one out, it would be Oribe. I think realistically, he'd be lucky to get one start in the World Cup. And I think if there were injuries to, let's say, Chicharito or Raul Jimenez, you could still have someone maybe like a Vela or Pizarro playing a false nine role. So I'm going to stick with Oribe. I'm interested to see what everyone else has to say.
Well, all right. No love for Oribe. We'll go to Mr. Tom Marshall back in Guadalajara after the El Tri travels. Tom, how's it going?
Good, thanks. Yeah, I think it's a split. Me, I think Marco Fabian is definite. I think that he can do something different. He plays different positions. Obviously, at Eintracht Frankfurt. So I think if he can prove his fitness between now and the World Cup, he has to go. And then I think the other two, it's a difficult question. It's a good question by Jason. The nice one. But I think if I was to leave one off right now, it'd be Rodolfo Pizarro. And just because I just think there's such a lack of number nines for Mexico that I think Osorio is going to want to have Oribe Peralta there. The other thing is I think Peralta's an important member of the squad in terms of the leadership, his experience. And I think if you look at it, sometimes Osorio likes to put Chicharito on the wing, Raul Jimenez on the wing. So I just think that, I don't know, Peralta is a real number nine and Mexico struggle for that. Whereas with Pizarro, there are other players that can do that. But it depends also on form, doesn't it? So if Pizarro just, is unbelievable between now and the World Cup and Peralta doesn't score a goal, then obviously that would change. But as of right now, Pizarro. All right. Well, it looks like Marco Fabian is stay safe from the here Mexican Soccer Show, Cesar and Tom. And we say hello to our awesome guest today, Mr. John Arnold. We've known John for a very long time. Normally, we see him a couple of days before games, and we see him in and out at all the Mexican soccer games. He's a great writer for Goal.com. Not only that, he's got his own marquee / what do we call it? Text box, John?
Shadow box, little letterbox, yeah.
John, how are you? Welcome to the show. Long overdue, sir. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me, guys. I do like the question as well. I think it's an interesting group because I think all three of those guys fit into this sort of maybe fringe. If Fabian's healthy, I think like Tom, he goes. He can do so many things. He's able to show talent. He's a player who can do it at the Bundesliga level if he can stay healthy. Pizarro, for me, is the man I cut right now. Of this group of three, we might talk a little bit later about our World Cup projections. I've got mine up on goal, and two of the three don't make the cut. I have Eusebio staying home as well. But I think if I had to take only two and leave one of the group of three, I'm leaving Pizarro. He had a good game in San Antonio, but I don't think he's done enough for the national team. And when you look at what Chivas are doing right now, I'm not entirely convinced that he's doing enough to help his club team even. So I liked what he did in San Antonio, but I don't think over the long run he's really proved that he's deserving of a national team call. Maybe that changes in March, but for now, I would leave him home. I'm a
turn it off.
There we go. And then, because you gotta get the face. You gotta get the face going. That's the money maker. If I was even handsome, but
good. I mean, I think it's interesting, right? I think if right now Pizarro's not doing enough, if he's lining it up in or even we know what Fabian can do, and if he's healthy, I think That question is really because I'll also leave Pizarro. I think you still need an Oribe there. In what he brings, Jimenez and him are the only ones that can play back to the goal in that 9 role, and what he brought 4 years ago, and the experience, and he can give you that goal. That Oribe Peralta chant was popular in the World Cup 4 years ago. So interesting to see. Jason Tom, you have one last comment before we go to the.
Say, I think another way of looking at it, if you want to flip it around, is that you should take someone like Pizarro to give him that experience of being at the World Cup, like what Cesar says then. Under what circumstances does Oribe Peralta start a game at the World Cup? And you think, it's not likely. I think that's the counter argument. But I also think with Pizarro, there's almost a hangover still from the Gold Cup, at least for me. Like I tried to be kind of objective in judging him, but I'm still angry, angry in a way at the Gold Cup, because going into that tournament, I was just so excited to see him take control of games and really make a massive impact. And for me, he didn't do it. And I thought that's still going around in my head. You know what I mean? I can't get it out of my head that when it came down to it.
No one loves CONCACAF more than me. No one loves CONCACAF more than me. But if you can't do it at the Gold Cup, can you do it at the World Cup? It's unlikely. So that's what I'm saying by I don't think he has the body of work.
Great points. It's getting a little too hot with this, Speedy. But I think that's what the question is. Everybody at their own, at their best, spot, right? If Pizarro was 100% playing the best football, Oribe is playing his best football, and Marco Fabiano is playing the best football, the question gets a little bit even more intense and kind of hard to decipher. But I feel that at least Pizarro is, someone else can give you what Pizarro can give you. I don't think if Marco Fabian, it's a totally different player. And as much as I know you said that Oribe is, he's not going to start a game, I feel like he's valuable. One of those guys gets hurt, Chicharito, Jimenez. That's it. They're hurt. You only have Peralta there. Jason is out looking at the Twitter. We posted this same questions, and we have percentages. Mr. Jason Marcos, our producer of the Mexican Soccer Show, and sometimes joins in. What's with the
look at his face
responses?
Like a rabbit in headlights.
Yeah, so there was some interesting responses. We had over 600 votes on Twitter. And Oribe Peralta is the not an overwhelming choice, but it's the choice right now. 44% of the voters selected Oribe, and 29% with Pizarro, and 27% with Marco Fabian. So we kind of agree with what you guys were saying, that Fabian, at least for Twitter and the 600 voters, seems to be the one to stay more often than the others. Now, we had a few interesting responses on Twitter that I'll look at here too, if my computer would stop being weird. Okay, here we go. This is good radio podcast right here. Okay. So Edwin Garcia says it's Pizarro for me, and that it's Fabian and Peralta last. FC Barcelona says, really? I have seen Fabian do 0 for Mexico. Saul Garcia says, what? Oribe is one of the best words Mexico's ever had, which spawned off a whole big thread that I won't subject you to right now. And Hola, my mommy says, since when was Pizarro going?
What was that username again?
Yeah, let's hear the username.
Hola, mami.
Hola, mami.
That's sorry.
You said it, so.
Stats 818 says, I would say Oribe. I like him though, but if I had to choose, I'd pick him very narrowly. So a lot of people saying that with the choice with Oribe is you're picking someone from a few years ago and not the current Oribe. And Roman says that he voted Pizarro just because not liking what he's seeing from Chivas in general right now. So that seems just about it, guys.
Cool. All right. I think it goes around. Everyone wants to keep the Marco Fabian. He gives you totally different when he's 100%. We see what we could do in that shot against Germany, or his, what we've seen, what we're doing. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you for the answers. If you're not join us in the chat right now and ask your questions. Jason will be there to kind of look at them and type them out for us to answer. But what we're talking today, we're going to go a little bit over the friendly and start on, last Wednesday's, I will say kind of rather boring friendly for me at the game. It was one of the first games where I think John and I were talking about earlier. We're like, it doesn't feel like it's a game outside the stadium. We'll go through there. The Mexicans abroad, a huge weekend for Mexicans abroad. If you were not paying attention, the list of great performances, at least starts, goals, assists from our Mexicans abroad. We'll go to it, and then we'll finish off with Liga MX, and of course the craziness that's the Liga MX as we've seen. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Who wants to answer? Who was a lot of people we were talking about Pizarro not giving a chance, but probably one of the players that really did shine in this friendly. Performances from anyone else that sticks out to you guys in your overall just kind of reactions to the games. We'll start Mr. Cesar.
Yeah, I mean, you got to say Jonathan Dos Santos. I think, he recognizes he's no longer a guaranteed starter for the national team. I still think he's a crucial part of the roster, but he really stepped up. I think he was a game changer. I mean, he not only provided the assist, but he really opened up the attack. He was a great distributor. So I think for me, it had to be Jonathan Dos Santos. And I do also think that Aquino, too. I know he lost the ball. I know he had a couple of bad shots there, but I just think he brought a little bit of risk taking that Mexico needed in the attack. So I think those two guys stood out for me the most. But if I had to choose one, it's easily Jonathan Dos Santos.
All right, Jonathan Dos Santos and Aquino. By the way, really quick, any injury report on Aquino? We saw him go out in the America game on crutches afterwards.
I think he's out of the next game.
Okay. So nothing big serious?
Tigres America, no? The weekend.
Yeah, Tigres America.
I think he's out of that game, yeah.
We'll see. Tom, as far as somebody that kind of stuck out to you, the friendly. This was the last friendly before a FIFA date. This is the last time that a Liga MX squad is going to be there. We thought that there was going to be maybe a game where everyone was playing, 100%, trying to make it to that spot. I didn't see that. Maybe lethargic. I don't know. I just didn't see that. Last game before it goes. Kyla, what was up to you? What was your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you're playing against a weak team as well. So, these guys are playing against better players week in, week out in the Mexican First Division. So, how much do you want to judge? And then you've got so many players, Alanis, the MLS players, Molina, all who have, haven't played that regularly recently. So, how much do you judge them? Is it fair to judge them? I'm not sure. So, Gallardo did well on the left. I think he's developing well in that role. I don't know if he's going to be ready to be a starter at the World Cup, but you can see what Osorio's seeing, if you know what I mean. He's obviously taken Gallardo from being a winger, and he's tried to adapt into this left back spot, and you can see it. And you can also see the deficiencies as well, especially defensively. But I thought Gallardo was bright, and I don't know. I struggle to pick out other really star performance and say, oh, that was amazing. I think even Osorio himself, with some of the experimentation he did. I mean, I was thinking about it earlier today or yesterday, with Elias Hernandez kind of inside. And I was thinking, why is he doing that? And why didn't you just put him on the wing? And then I'm like, well, he played him on the wing at the Gold Cup. He plays week in, week out for Leon on the wing. Everybody knows what Elias Hernandez can do on the wing. So if there was ever a time to do experiments, it was this game. And I mean, I think it's difficult to make.
Man, did he really experiment in the attack? I mean, Orbelin was switching with Vela, Elias was switching with Gio, and it was just the middle felt like it was just constantly interchanging for me. I know you guys were there at the game, but for me, it just looked, and I get it. I understand why Osorio wanted to experiment in this game, why he wanted to mix things up a bit, but I do think that, maybe Elias would have been able to shine a little bit if it wasn't so, I don't know, if it wasn't switched so often, especially during the first half in his attacking position.
But like Tom says, I think part of the reason that Osorio did that is because this is the exact kind of game where it's okay, you're going to get the result almost no matter what. Maybe that's a little arrogant, but you usually don't lose January friendlies against essentially a U21 team from Bosnia. He already knows what Elias Hernandez can do. He already knows what Orbelin can do in a normal interior role. He switches the script. I didn't think it worked very well at all in the first half. I thought a lot of the players looked confused. Yeah. Even when they worked with the false nine the last 10 minutes of the game, 15 minutes of the game maybe. I asked Pizarro after the game in the mix zone. I got a couple minutes with him, and I said, how long do you have to work when this is going to come up? It's not like Osorio is going to throw that out there without any preparation. But when you think about it, they all got together in Mexico City on Sunday. They travel, they train Monday, they train Tuesday, and then I think they train Wednesday morning, and then it's the game. So you're thinking, if you worked on 3 different formations, max you did it sort of in 3 different training sessions. I think it's very difficult. So maybe it's harsh of us to judge players like you're saying, and maybe it's worth seeing seeing how players work together in different formations, because I think it's bonus, right?
Yeah.
Osorio knows what Hernandez can do, but can he do something different? Osorio knows what Orbelin can do, but can he do something different? If the answer is yes, maybe something you take in to factor in with the World Cup roster decision. For me, talking about someone who stood out, I'll just answer the question as well. I thought Xhaka did really well on the right side, and he's another player where he can play interior as well if he needs to. If there's an injury, if something happens during a game, I don't think he's really in the picture still, even after a good performance. But he's a guy who can both play right back and play inside. Osorio had some positive words from him after the game. Maybe he's a guy who gets a recall to the March friendlies and makes a little push.
Yeah, I think that's possible. That's he's somebody definitely on the up. Basically, since he earned the starting spot at Tigres. Of the other experiments, I thought Vela did quite well in that kind of inside role. Obviously, it's difficult because he's not played since the end of December. But I thought he understood it much better, and I thought he linked the midfield with the attack. He was finding those spaces, and you can tell if Vela is fully fit and on form, then he could do some damage. And that's the first time I've really seen Vela or Giovanni Dos Santos, those players that, that Osorio clearly wants there, like, the Elias Hernandez experiment as well. He clearly sees something in those more. Marco Fabian's another. But I've not seen it personally, but with Vela, I kind of, all right, that made sense. The other ones are Nestor Araujo on the left side of the centre-back. He's thinking that. Osorio's thinking a lot about that, because obviously he wants to see a left-footed player there for his cross-field passes, but he also realizes that, if Oswaldo Alanis doesn't start playing regularly, and even if he does, then is he good enough? And if Moreno's not available, then what's there? So I think Osorio's answering those kind of questions, those kind of fringe.
Yeah.
This isn't who's going to start against Germany. It's like, okay, under these circumstances, who can I rely on for these positions? And I think that was what the friendly game was mainly about.
Yeah, exactly. And testing those players out. Pointed. I mean, I had in the questions on a run through. You guys do. As far as you already mentioned, Jonathan Dos Santos, we mentioned Vela, but Giovanni. I know it's early. It feels like we know what they can do, and it's because it's early. It's kind of an excuse. But how long is it going to take them to get to that rhythm? If they're not ready for that March game and they're horrible for that March game, does the panic start going out that the 2005, Gio and Vela partnership that's been going through, and then Jonathan Dos Santos coming in, might not work?
I think just quickly, I'd say Vela and Jonathan Dos Santos are in. I can't see circumstances. I mean, unless they're absolutely terrible, they forget how to play. I just think they're in because they
somehow
both offer
space jammed.
Yes.
We mentioned this at the Liga MX and Chill. You cannot take one Dos Santos. It's both.
I do think I wrote after the game, and maybe I got some feedback both ways. There's a lot of Gio haters out there. A lot of people thought I was being quite harsh on Gio because it was his first game of 2018, but I think when you compare him to the standard that you compare Vela and his brother to, we're mentioning both of them as players who stood out positively. I didn't think Gio understood his role, which Osorio said after the game he didn't agree with that assessment. He thought he thought Gio did well. Apparently, I think he's going to be at the World Cup, but I do think his position is far more precarious than any of the other two MLS-based players. And I also am just not convinced, even if Osorio's backing him publicly, I do wonder if he has some doubts about if Gio would be a player who can start, because I haven't seen it. I think he's looked confused. It's been difficult maybe for Osorio to find a place for him to fit in. I think he's tried, especially in various friendlies. Remember he played in that game against New Zealand?
Belgium.
Yeah, I mean, he's really tried to work him in a bunch of different places. So I don't see it. So of the three MLS players, I think despite the fact that Giovanni apparently, according to Osorio, was, in the best fitness of the three perhaps, and was following the plan that he gave the players 10 weeks ago, I still am a bit concerned that he's going to not be up to level when it's time for the World Cup.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing that you just brought up. I mean, it's not even just him being up to level, but like you said, just where would he fit? He can't be going on the wing right now. Mexico has a lot of winger options, and is he going to be one of those two attacking midfield positions? So you got Herrera there, you got potentially Jonathan Dos Santos there, you got potentially Marco Fabian there. So he's got a lot of competition in those spots. So you do question his role. I think he'll sneak into the World Cup. I still see him as an exciting, perhaps second half option. Obviously, he's not. I don't think many people think he's a starter right now for obvious reasons. But yeah, I mean, I think that is interesting. Something that you just brought up, the positioning wise. Just I think that's a big question. Is say he does have an excellent season with the Galaxy. Say he really steps it up. Then where do you put him? Where would you put you? What would be optimal?
Gio, you haven't seen.
I see it differently though. I see that as a benefit for Giovanni.
Okay.
The fact that he can play different positions, because I think you can play him on the right wing, and cutting into his left-footed as well, and I think that's really important because we know Osorio is evaluating these players based on if they're right or left-footed. So I think Giovanni he likes the fact that you've got another option on the left, and Tecatito, Lozano, the other, even Fabian, the rest of the potential wingers, even Raul Jimenez, Chicharito, who's played both of them on the wing before, they're all right-footed. So I think he likes that. I think he likes that option. But yeah, I mean, I agree with the rest.
I think he likes it as well, and he should, right? But there is, I think, a point where versatility, it can only go so far. You have to be able to not only just play two positions, but play both positions well. And I think Dos Santos has a potential to do that. And I totally agree with you, Tom, that Osorio sees that and wants that to happen. I just don't know that it's happening right now. For me, it didn't happen against Bosnia and Herzegovina. There are going to be bigger tests that perhaps he'll be able to pass in March. I think he's on the March roster, even if he, doesn't play. But I think that's sort of where Gio's at for me. I think he's on the roster. I think he's going to go, but I do think he needs to improve if he's going to be a key part of L3 in Russia.
For me, it's a confidence issue. He's had a really bad last year, and I think he has actually worked really hard in the pre-season. And I think it's absolutely vital that he starts this MLS season well.
He was doing the beach training with Joan and Vela, though, was he?
That's all they do. Shirts off.
Wouldn't you? Dude, if I looked like that, I would wear a shirt like 2% of the time.
I think you do look like that, John. I don't see why you don't. Always, you should have come on the show just without your shirt. Yeah, no, it's funny that we're mentioning that Gio might not make the World Cup. He's going to be there. He'll be there. I honestly believe that he'll be there. Even if has a mediocre season, I still believe that Juan Carlos Osorio is going to bring him, and he sees that talent. Maybe he's not going to start, but we'll be there. All right, moving on. I got Jason telling us we have to move on, but really quick on that question. Rodriguez69 did say Gallardo. He really liked Gallardo, although he wasn't tested much defensively. Good kid, Gallardo. And then Antonio Rojas did say, I'd say Pizarro can do everything Gio can do, but better. He can also play multiple positions. Ooh, Pizarro, Gio, at their best. I'll take Gio. His experience, especially what he's had before. All right. Really quick before we move on to Mexicans abroad. Excuse me. The big talk. Jonathan Gonzalez. We almost didn't even. We were mentioning almost the questions coming in. His debut. What do you guys think? Positive, negative? I mean, for pretty good. It wasn't crazy good. I mean, but he did what he was supposed to do, and had some flashes of brilliance there.
I mean, he was able to seamlessly work well with the rest of the roster. He was able to assimilate well with the rest of the roster. I mean, but you gotta take this all with a grain of salt. He didn't get that many minutes. This is against like we said, it was like a Bosnian D team, FT. Like I don't even know how far down we got to go right there with the Bosnian team.
23, I think.
Yeah, But yeah, no, I think if we're just basing off that limited amount of time that he had, obviously he still has a lot to prove for the national team. I was impressed. I think he worked well with the rest of the midfield, and I do think that there is potential there. I think we all see a lot of potential in him, but of course, once again, it was just one game with a limited role with the national team.
All I know is
I like his personality. I think he's got real character, real personality, and all right, it wasn't the biggest game, 25,000 there, but he comes on and within 2 minutes he's doing that, that turn in his own half, and then he gets hacked down, and it's stuff like that, little things like that show a player's got real personality. That he makes his debut. He's just had all this saga about moving from the United States team, and that must have weighed really heavily on him. I bet he couldn't sleep, and he was like thinking about this for the last a couple of months now. And for them to finally, he makes his debut, and he he comes on and he shows authority. I thought I was really impressed. But like I said in Countdown to Russia, this is a kid who left home at 14. He's already had really had it tough, you know, at Monterrey. You don't graduate through that youth system into the first team without really, really battling. And that's more than anything else. That's what I really like about Jonathan Gonzalez. Just quickly, I know he played further forward than he does in Monterrey, and I saw people saying, you know, it wasn't fair on him and stuff like that, but he actually played most of his career in his youth career in a more advanced role. It was actually Mohamed at Monterrey who kind of shifted that a little bit more. So you could say that the way he plays at Monterrey is actually the anomaly, whereas, you know, naturally he would go forward a bit more.
I agree with you, Tom, that, you know, he showed character and flair, but I'm going to go even farther. Yes, he did play a more advanced role in the youth system, but professionally, he'd only been asked to do one thing. That's what Mohamed asked him to do. He's really only had one professional tournament. So I think his personality and character went a long way. But for me, the fact that he was able to show that not only on the field for the first time wearing the green of L3, but also doing so in a different position than he's ever played professionally, it showed a lot for me. And Cesar, you stay measured, and you said, hey, it's just one game. I'm going all in, man. I put him on my World Cup projection. I've got him going to Russia right now. Things could change. I update it every month, but I've got him going right now.
Hey, man, I would love to see that, man. I would love to see it. I mean, I'm going to stay reserved. I'm going to stay. I still.
That's fine. I respect it.
But man, I would love that, man. I think that'd be cool. I mean, just speaking as like a Mexican American guy. Also, by the way, I thought that for a second that Selena's final concert was in the Alamo Dome, and I was really excited. I was like, oh man, the same place where Selena had her last concert. That's where Jonathan Gonzalez is gonna. Guys, I have a weird obsession with Selena. I think a lot of Mexican Americans do.
You didn't go to San Antonio with Selena's Bridge.
I just found out
Married was there. I think Amy.
So wait, where was her last concert?
It was in the Astrodome. I thought it was the Alamo Dome.
They're not playing soccer there, man. That place is doomed.
And that is my final analysis on Jonathan Gonzalez.
Anything for Salinas. That's the way you're thinking. I can't believe you're already putting him in the World Cup. Man.
It's a projection.
That's okay.
I think he's going to grow over the next several months, and I think he's going to make it.
That's crazy projection.
I heard it here.
I took John Arnold in the World Cup.
John Arnold said it's going to be the leading goal scorer for L3 this summer.
He's going to be
Golden
like
Boot winner the whole tournament.
All right. Well, there we go, guys. We're going a little bit over. We answered. There's a question in the chat. Bill Menn said that Jonathan Gonzalez do enough to merit another call. We all agree probably he'll be called in March, right? I think just to see a little bit more, or
he's gonna have to be, or my projection's gonna look real dumb.
He doesn't call him in and then come back. Well, we'll see that. All right, guys. Next Mexico friendly, or at least more than a friendly, FIFA in San Francisco, Santa Clara, against Iceland, and then Dallas. Right, which hasn't been confirmed, but it looks like it's going to be maybe Croatia.
Yeah, I think Televisa in Mexico, they're announcing it. Like there's adverts saying
all right,
Croatia.
It's
Croatia announced it.
Yeah, Croatia announced it, but it hasn't been. And then so Croatia, there's a friendly against Denmark, in Denmark, and then am I missing somebody else? In Mexico,
they're playing Scotland at the Azteca.
You see the difference, like that style of not great teams, but totally different style teams that we don't play very often. Looking at Germany, looking at Sweden, looking at Korea. I mean, how are you seeing those four teams? You know, I know everyone's looking and wanting the non-Molero games, but are you guys liking, really quick to end this, the type of games that we're going to be playing, like Denmark and in Denmark, which I think would be great, but at least all World Cup teams except for Bosnia.
It just feeds into Osorio's, almost obsession with, more physical tems, teams that play in the air. So I think obviously they've searched for that kind of opponent. So
so no Chapito Montes then.
And it's just it's kind of a shame that one of those opponents isn't England, because that was very close to happening. I would prefer for Mexico to be facing England, but TV rights and whatnot. So
Fox Soccer.
Yeah, that was that's absolutely awful, by the way, and people within the federation are really annoyed. Including someone
because it got out.
Hey.
Because the story got out, or because it actually happened?
No, because they're not playing England. Because playing England in Wembley last game would have been absolutely perfect preparation for Germany. And full respect to Denmark, who are also a decent team. It's not the same. And you can imagine kind of Osorio, especially Osorio as manager. You know, you've got this potential game at Wembley against England to set you off for the World Cup, and then it falls through because the TV companies can't get the stuff together. I mean, it must anger you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Costa Rica was able to take the spot for that game against England, so they're just kind of disappointing in that set. All right, Mexicans abroad. Let's switch it around. A great weekend for Mexicans abroad, which is funny because it all started with at least kind of some mention after the Mexico game, and kind of looking at Saturday very quietly with Chicharito scoring a golazo. But one of the things that we mentioned this whole month, is, are the Mexicans abroad, the guys in Europe, getting enough minutes? And in fact, something I mentioned last year, I was like, I haven't seen these guys not have those minutes, and Moreno wasn't switched around yet. Layun wasn't playing, and it looks like now everything's going into it. So let's talk Mexicans abroad. The sun rises again on once a gloomy landscape. Hector Moreno. Let's talk to Real Sociedad, and at least the moves too with Miguel Layun over the week. We talked a little bit in the last Mexican soccer show, but Moreno is huge, Tom, and hopefully. Well, we saw that situation in Roma now, where he's going to be at. Tell me a little bit about it.
No, I mean, Íñigo Martínez went from Real Sociedad to Athletic Bilbao, and I think that opened up a spot. Laporte went from Bilbao to Manchester City, so it was like dominoes. And Hector Moreno said he really wasn't even thinking about leaving Roma, and then the offer came in, and he couldn't say no. And really, it's absolutely perfect because he's almost guaranteed minutes at Real Sociedad, and that's exactly what he needs. I mean, it's an absolute no-brainer. Real Madrid and Real Sociedad not doing so well, but yeah, hopefully he'll be playing this weekend because I believe they'll be playing in the Bernabeu.
So
Real Sociedad could be against
lightning.
They'll probably win though, the way Real Madrid are playing at the minute.
Real Sociedad tend to do kind of well against Real Madrid over the past few years too, right? I feel like they've been they provided them a little bit of problems in the past. I feel like they've typically done that. I don't know why.
Don't know that answer.
Obviously, none of us have the stats on that.
I thought you had a stat for it. I thought you were about to set yourself up.
By the way,
in the last 8 games,
really
I have no idea.
Moreno failed in Italy.
Well, he didn't really get a chance, did he?
He didn't have a chance to fail.
Maybe he could have done more in training. I'm not sure, but Osorio was also, without provocation, said that Moreno's in really, really good shape. Just needs the chance. And I think the Roma coach, when Moreno came in, he'd been there a few weeks. He said, "Don't worry about Moreno. He just needs time to adapt." And yeah, I mean, you don't know what would have happened, but at the end of the day, with the World Cup coming up, and this is Moreno's last World Cup in his absolute peak, then Moreno needed to think about him and Mexico first. And it's actually quite interesting how Layun as well was just so desperate to leave because of the World Cup. Moreno as well. Even Chicharito's come out and said a few things that he had some interesting offers, but it just looks like what happened with West Ham is that they've got an injury crisis up front. So all of a sudden, Chicharito's the guaranteed 100% starter. So that just changes the whole situation for him at West Ham.
John, you do a segment for Goal. In fact, you use your great little box with the Mexicans abroad. Really quick, tell us kind of a wrap-up of how important was this weekend for everybody. Marco Fabian coming back in, Govea, Chucky.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think it was the best weekend for Mexicans. I'm used to sitting here by the sun and giving bad news to Mexico fans. Sometimes there's a goal here or there, but a lot of times it's been, Chicharito didn't get minutes. Hector Moreno not even in the segment because he's not getting time. Miguel Layun not in the 18. Now you look at these moves, and I think Tom tweeted, and I very much agree with the sentiment that, far bigger than anything that happened in the friendly for Mexico last week was the fact that, these two players, Hector Moreno and Miguel Layun, who Mexico's best back four, it's the left half. They both get minutes where they're going to now, they get moves and ideally are going to get minutes now. You already see Layun playing for Sevilla. Moreno says, I'm not the replacement for Martinez, but yeah, he is, And I think the fact that they're given this lifeline, Tom, you talked earlier about trying Nestor Araujo out on the left side like he plays with Santos, maybe because of injury. And I think, Moreno was going to start at left center back against Germany come hell or high water. But at the same time, if he wasn't playing, maybe you worry about that. Now you don't have those worries necessarily. So I think it's a phenomenal move in general. You mentioned the whole weekend in general. Like I said, I think it was the best weekend for Mexicans in quite some time. You saw Marco Fabian get back on the field. It seemed like there was reason to panic not even 3 weeks ago. And now all of a sudden, hey, it's looking okay.
Yeah. And especially, with Layun, just a complete 180 for him. That I know that his team lost 5-1. That's probably not the way that you want to initiate your start in La Liga. But man, he's just immediately thrown as a starting right back, and it's such a complete 180 from Porto, where he was lucky to make the game day roster. He was genuinely lucky to make the game day roster. And at times he was just completely overlooked by the team. So to be able to immediately gain a starting role within a matter of days, it is just days in La Liga.
These are good teams.
Yeah, for Sevilla. That's not to be overlooked. I think that's really important for him. And I know, once again, it was a 5-1 loss. That's not ideal for him, but that's great news for him.
Yeah. I'm just switching it quickly to Chicharito, because I know, he scored maybe the best goal that he scored in Europe.
That was so
this
good
last
man.
weekend. Unbelievable.
That was good.
And
passed shot.
Yeah, and I think he scored a few games back. Was it a few games back? He's won a penalty over this little period. So
he broke somebody's ankles last week.
So he
looks not on his own team.
He looks, he looks positive, but I'm still worried. I'm not gonna lie. I'm still
Why
worried.
are you worried, Tom?
Why?
Why are you
Well, I
worried,
think
Tom?
Arnautovic is going to come back. I think Lanzini is going to come back, and I think the team have been losing as well. They've not been winning while those two have been out. And I still just don't think Chicharito is Moises' type of striker. And I think that almost Chicharito can do anything. And I don't think Moises is going to make him an absolute starter. I hope I'm wrong. I really, really hope I'm wrong. But
could you make an argument then that during the next couple weeks, when they're still having injury problems, that this is now his time to really prove that he is worthy of being a starter going forward for the rest of the season?
If they keep losing, it doesn't matter.
No, but 100%. I think Chicharito, and he's doing it, to be fair. I think you can see, what was that game where he came on and scored the goal right from the kickoff?
The Bournemouth game.
Yeah, and it just showed just the desire in that goal. There was nothing really special about that goal, apart from that he absolutely was determined to score that goal. And I think that's what he's shown recently. And in his recent comments as well, he's been like, right, I'm here to fight now. I'm here to fight against relegation, fight for minutes, and I've got a World Cup coming up. So I think almost, but yeah, it's just my worry, because I still go back to that. I just don't think Chicharito is Moises' kind of striker. But yes, as I completely agree, Chicharito has to change that perception with Moyes, if you know what I mean.
Like immediately.
But you can only do that by scoring goals, which is what he did last weekend was great.
Yeah, what he's doing, and now Diego Reyes Cesar. We mentioned it. Liga MX and Chill on Sunday.
Yeah.
Scored a goal.
Third goal in all competitions since December. It's pretty impressive for someone who's a central defender. I know he's been playing as a defensive midfielder sometimes too, but it's pretty important for him, especially since he's getting a lot of minutes now too with Porto. So that's great to see, especially for the national team, because it looks like Osorio is a big fan of him, and he's probably be starting in that defensive midfield role for El Tri going forward, just because of his good aerial game.
Yeah, I think the Diego Reyes story, well, what's happened recently with him, he's kind of gone a bit under the radar, but he's genuinely another really, because all the criticism Diego Reyes has received, I know I've said this before, but I felt some of it was slightly unfair, because he wasn't playing, regularly for Porto, and then suddenly you throw him, against Costa Rica away, and that's not an easy game, and he struggles, and it's like, well, I think if you're not playing regularly and you're not confident, you're not in that rhythm, then it is difficult. So I think again, massive news that Diego Reyes is, seems to have got the start now. And put that together with Carlos Salcedo, who's just plugging away, exactly. Just arguably the most consistent now, with Guardado maybe the most consistent Mexican in Europe, and I think that's another massive boost for the defense. And I know John's written about, I think last year about, the defense maybe being the weakest part of this Mexico side. Well, if you've got those players playing. Then it suddenly becomes it just becomes such more positive. You know, the way of going ahead to the World Cup when you've got 3 or 4 defenders playing regularly in Europe compared to 3 of them not playing much, which was what we've had recently.
And you're looking at was just kind of when you're mentioning that Ochoa playing, and I think he also had he didn't get scored on 5 times. I think he had a clean sheet. And then you start lining up Salcedo on one side, Layun on the other, Moreno, and maybe Araujo or whoever's going to fill that spot. Diego Reyes doing in the defensive mid, Herrera. It's starting to see Chucky, Chicharito, then filter in Guardado. I mean there it is. I mean, you're already starting to see the backbone of the La Selección on that very first game against Germany. And then you added the Tecatito. It's starting to look and starting to see that if hopefully everyone's starting to get minutes, which is something we were worried about a few weeks back, and continue to have that positive, it's going to be pretty good. And we're going to start seeing hopefully a different Mexico and all of them kind of going in there and playing. So
this was such a good weekend that we haven't even talked about Chucky, who got 2 assists. We haven't talked about the fact that Raul Jimenez got a goal. I might be missing. No, that's still important. That's still important. But anyway, that's still important.
I'll be hard on Raul, man. Go in and score 1-0 and play not on the 79th minute when your team's up 5-1.
That was Benfica's 5th goal of the night. So.
Has he ever scored first for his team in Benfica?
Was he ever playing from the first whistle? They steamroll teams and then they toss in Jimenez for the last 10 minutes. He gets a goal in garbage time. All right,
Interesting. All right. Chucky. We'll continues to the fire. Really quick, is he going to be there after the World Cup, PSV guys?
Nah.
Nope.
Nah. A guy at 22 years old. He's got 12 goals and 6 assists in the Eredivisie. That's just he's going abroad. I was saying going abroad. He's already gone abroad. He's going to another team. That's for sure.
I'm gonna just remind you about Jose Altidore. So
we didn't say he'd succeed. We said he'd move.
Okay.
Sunderland legend, that guy.
Okay. I'm just saying.
And Toronto FC champion, MLS champion.
True.
So
That's true.
I'm gonna continue to do. He's doing everything he's supposed to be doing, but it's not like Real Madrid or Barcelona or Manchester United. Like I still feel maybe a mid-level team, a little more in a league where he is going to be showcasing more of his stuff. See how he does. I think this World Cup is going to be huge for him, and if he makes that impact against those players, against Germany, against Sweden, against Korea, then we'll see. But he can score 19 goals at PSV and not have that great a World Cup, and he's going to stay at PSV. So I feel that's where that's going. I'm not going to jump off of this is the greatest player ever, but at the same time, I'm happy. It's exactly what we said he needed to do. He needed to score goals, and he might be a little better for that league, but I want to see him against, the best.
So got it. Wiso says Chucky is the greatest player of all time. Then John Arnold said that Jonathan Gonzalez is going to be leading goal scorer. All right.
That's right.
Good. All right. Let's go. Liga MX. Really quick. Jason, any updates on the chat? And I'll have a look at right now, but once we switch in regarding anything that we've talked about or any other questions, hopefully you can get that in.
Just a reminder that it's Sven Gordon Eriksson's birthday, so happy birthday to
Sven.
A lot of great
national team legend Sven Gordon Eriksson.
In the same breath, Cristiano Ronaldo, Neymar, and Sven Gordon Eriksson today. Just want to tell you guys. On their birthdays today. Really quick, Patreon, before we go into Liga MX, if you're not part of our great Patreon, si no eres nuestro patrón, as we like to call it, please do so. You want to go in depth in the Mexican national team. Last Thursday, Cesar, Naib, Tom, I don't remember if you were a part of it, but they went in and they analyzed all of the of what happened in the Wednesday friendly. And then this week also, we're going into continuing that countdown to Russia, a great podcast. Be a part of it. A full hour or a little bit more on all of the national team, giving you guys lots of insights. So if you're already not our Patreon, we really would love for you to be part of it and listen to the extra stuff that we do here with the Mexican Soccer Show.
Yeah, patreon.com/Mexican Soccer Show. That number once again is patreon.com/the Mexican Soccer Show.
There it is. All right, Liga MX, the 5th week. it's starting to shape up. We saw the
Yo, that's the
Tigres.
face of a Leon fan right there.
I'm still waiting for Landon next week.
Taking a bit longer to get onto the Liga MX, and then
it could be. It could be.
All right.
It could be because the very first topic was what is happening with Leon. The 6 fans that want to know what's happening with Leon, but we'll get there. Let's go
to bury this bit.
Let's go Chivas America. And let's start with the most popular teams in Mexico, and as we see, season performance is indicative of how the season will finish for these two. Tom, let's go with the bad news. Let's start with Chivas and the loss and what is happening again. I really thought that I remember a few years back, every conversation we had, what's going on with Guadalajara? What's going on with Guadalajara? They were to win a championship, and then, are they losing that Almeida touch? Is it the players? What can you tell us, especially over the weekend's performance?
Yeah, there's something going wrong. Analysis there.
And that ends our show. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, John, for joining us.
It's patreon.com.
No, I think it's obvious. You can watch the games and people can see that it's not working. I still think Chivas have got a good team. I think you got players that were really key in the championship win. Chapo Sanchez, Aris Hernandez, Orbelin Pineda, and Salcido, and they're just not doing it now. And I think there's kind of an atmosphere around the club. I think that for me, we can talk about the defense. Obviously the Salcido and Edgardo Marin partnership isn't working. You've got Oswaldo Alanis on the bench, who still hasn't played a game this season. All right, in the friendly last week for Mexico, he did look rusty, but he's only going to get rid of that by actually playing. And to be honest, the team needs him in there. Even a half fit Oswaldo Alanis is better than what we've seen. I just think there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Obviously, the Alanis situation with the contract, that kind of it made a wedge between Higuera, the CEO, Jose Luis Higuera, and Jorge Vergara, because Vergara afterwards said that the situation shouldn't have happened with Alanis's contract, and how he was expelled from the squad and banished from first team training. So I think there's a lot of stuff going on like that. I think Almeida probably regrets not leaving, to be honest, right now, because I just don't think the relationship between him and Higuera, and I think that's the problem with the club. I'm not sure how the Alanis situation as well has affected the rest of the players, because Almeida sided with the ownership. So I just think it's one of those, we've seen it throughout the years, especially the Vergara years, that these off the field issues come in and they kind of haunt the club. And what we've got now is a team that's struggling, really low on confidence, and they just can't find that bit of magic that it had in the championship win.
I think that the Alanis saga is a big, off-field morale. It's a detriment to morale. If you're a player and you see how the team treated Alanis, and not only that, but I think Almeida siding with ownership over the players, I think, part of the reason I think they won the championship was that players were willing to put everything on the line for Almeida. I'm not saying they're not committed to the club anymore, because I'm sure that most of the players still love Chivas and represent the institution proudly. But at the same time, after you see a colleague go through what Alanis did, and to me, continually Almeida is siding with people other than Alanis. I don't think he's a phenomenal player, but I think Chivas' defense looks pretty bad right now. When you have a player who's getting called up to the national team just sitting there, you see him in training. If you're a player, he probably looks okay, but yet he continues not to play. I think that is not only a factor on field, but also what message is this into the players? Are they really going to fight and give everything they have for a manager, for a club who kind of cast one of your teammates to the side and could very well do the same to you? I'm not sure. I think, like Tom said, it's a talented team, so you do start to have to look for these things. Why aren't they playing like they did 2 tournaments ago? But those tournaments were a long time ago, honestly. Yeah. It's been a while since we saw Chivas look really good, Cesar.
Yeah, and tactically speaking, so Alanis isn't playing. Alanis isn't playing. So you have someone like Marin step in. Honestly, Marin has been very, very disappointing. I think he's been a big reason why Chivas are struggling so much. When you're looking at that back line, that that duo between him and Salcido is just so worrisome. It's just really worrisome, and it's not much of a surprise why they've been struggling so much. Obviously, there's other problems going on and off the pitch, but if we're just looking, tactically, if we're just looking at that starting 11, just the Marin and Salcido partnership in the middle of the defense, it's just that's a key reason why they've been struggling so much. A lot of that has, it's a relation to the problems with Alanis.
Yeah, I'd say the other thing, the transfer policy. I mean, Almeida's come out and said that he wasn't happy. That he wasn't happy with what the club did, and it's almost like something that we've seen repeated over the Vergara era. I mean, if we remember the 2010 Copa Libertadores final when they played Internacional, and the Chivas had a really, really good team then, and then bit by bit that was broken up. And I think that Chivas needed to go out and sign a centre back. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy to bring in someone like Cesar Montes, or that even Monterrey would even contemplate selling. But I think you have to do something. And Ronaldo Cisneros came in, Sandoval from Santos, but you got rid of Gaito Vasquez, so your team's just got worse for me. You know what I mean? In terms of your 11 starters, your team has just got worse.
Yeah.
And you've already just finished the last season, in like 13th or something. So, I mean, that's not great as well. And I'm sure Almeida is not happy at all. But yeah, I worked out like the points for all the teams in the league, starting from the Apertura 2017. So starting from when kind of the European season would be. And if we had a one long season, the Chivas are on 22 points, and only Querétaro on 20 and Veracruz on 19 have earned less points than Chivas, which Chivas are in relegation form and have been ever since winning the championship. That's the situation the club is in, and it's extremely worrisome now.
And real quick, it's a total mystery to me, but they can't win at home. That's what's killing them. You can afford these performances, honestly, and in Puebla. You can lose to Puebla in Puebla and make it to the Liguilla if you win your games at home, if you don't lose games at home. But they've been dropping points at home like crazy. Last tournament, only Querétaro had a worse road record. Tom, that jogged my memory. So you got to figure it out in front of people that are very supportive of you in an atmosphere that was difficult to travel to. And now, for some reason, you can't get any points. It's not a way to get into the playoffs and turn things back around.
From Chivas talk to America, as a team that's is going rather well and where they're at in the table, number 2 in the table, Chivas number 16. The big story, Henry Martin was the next Oribe. Just a good run. Tell me a little about what is Piojo. Have you seen the hand of Piojo now? Everything working for them, as far as refuerzos, as far as they're playing. Tom, especially with the talks and all the trades are coming in and what we're seeing on there. America finally, they're back and looking for title contender, especially where they're at in the league.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Martin, he's getting there. I mean, he's five goals now this season. He's obviously full of confidence. Got the Mexico call up, so yeah. I mean, it's looking good for him. And after all the transfer window where America were just linked with seemingly every mid-level striker in Europe that possibly could be persuaded to come to Mexico. So I think it's good for him, good for the national team to have a bit of competition up front. And yeah, Herrera's getting it together. He's a good Liga MX manager. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he wants from his team. He's good in terms of the atmosphere of the group. But I mean, for me, I mean, you've got Guido Rodriguez and Oribe, the Colombian, and I think that's a great central midfield partnership. Dynamic. You've got defense there. You've got, Oribe's good in terms of his vision and he can unlock a defense. So I think you've got a lot of positives there in the central midfield, and I think that's the platform which America are built from. I mean,
Paul Aguilar he's healthy. You have someone like we haven't talked about, Renato Ibarra, who's got 4 assists so far this season. And especially with Guido, I think that's one of the best defensive midfielders in the league. And I think a problem he had last season was that guy was just collecting yellows like no other. He was collecting reds as well. And I think as long as he can continue to avoid those, which he has done so far, then that's great news for America. So, and of course, with Henry Martin, I mean, that's just, what could you say about this, especially after how underwhelmed America fans were when he was first brought to the team. I mean, everyone knew that he was kind of a backup player with Tijuana, but I mean, Piojo obviously knew this guy. Piojo worked with him in Tijuana. Yeah, I mean, great news for Martin. I just don't. I guess the big question for me is if he can maintain this, or if someone like Jeremy Manet is going to end up pushing him out of the starting 11, despite how well he's doing.
But that's the difference between Chivas and America in this offseason. Of course, America has it much easier because they can sign a French guy, they can sign a Colombian guy, they can sign an Argentine, they can sign whoever they want. But at the same time, they did go out and do that this offseason, and now they have that depth that you're talking about, Cesar, where Henry Martin has to compete for his spot. And if he doesn't, there's someone there to replace it. At Chivas, there are very promising young players, but I'm not sure if Alan Pulido doesn't perform well in training one week, can Almeida bench him? If La Chofis has a bad week, he's probably got to go out there because I don't think they have the same depth that America has by going out and buying players in this window, even though they're disappointed, but also previous windows, bringing in Rodriguez when El Piojo arrived, Uribe, the midfielder, another semi-recent arrival. So these are players who I think are now getting what El Piojo is asking them to do, and they're reaping the benefits. It did beat a pretty bad Lobos Buap team, but they've been consistently good, and I think will probably continue to be throughout the rest of the tournament.
A Lobos Buap side that went to 10 men by what, like the 26th minute, 27th minute? I think that's at the Estadio Azteca. I think that's important to keep in mind too. But I mean,
sure.
America took advantage of it. I mean, they took full advantage, and they're just impressive. They're really exciting to watch.
Yeah, I do agree with John, but the thing that the mystery with Chivas is that because they have got a decent bench. If you look at the players that are on the bench, and you're like, but then you're not going to play those players because they've not been played. Like Isaac Brizuela, I mean, what's happened to him?
Dude, what's happened to Brizuela just in general, man? I mean, I know
what's happened. I mean, honestly, it's easy to. I know Chivas fans are online and saying, "Oh, we need to put Brizuela on." It's like, yeah, but when he's come on, he's not done anything. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I think that's the other side of Chivas that is I just can't explain. I mean, Chapo Sanchez, what's happened to him? Edwin Hernandez, like there's just so many players where they just seem to have, I don't know, they just lost it. You know what I mean? The confidence has absolutely been shot. But yeah, you look at the America bench, and Joe Corona didn't get on. Edson Alvarez started on the bench, which that's slightly worrying for the national team, to be honest, because they won 5-1, and that centre back partnership of Aguilera and Valdez looked pretty solid, although it's not exactly the toughest test, is it, against Lobos Buap? But yeah, America for me, I think I said before the season as well. I think you've got those top two, Monterrey and Tigres, and then I think America are the third best team in Liga MX right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, yeah, we talked about that before the season. What are the teams that are there? I think Leon was mentioned there, but let's talk about around the league. For those of you that joined us,
Leon.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We're at 8:59 with 50 seconds. No.
Don't worry, Landon will save you, Lee.
Landon will save you.
Landon will save you.
Landy Cakes.
He won't save you.
We like to call him. Let's talk about around the league. 2,000 of you guys. I'm proud to say, joined us for Liga MX and Chill. And outstanding the fact there's so many people that joined us talking for 2 hours. We were talking about Neri Castillo. We were talking about
we're making jokes about hats. I think 30% of us, like 30% of that chat was just you talking about Takis.
Takis was a great conversation that I had this deformed Takis, and they wrote. Anyway, a lot of fun. Obviously, we were talking about the game also. Pumas, Tigres. None of us had Pumas winning 2-0 in the 40th minute, and then what happened in the second half. Tigres once again just kind of going like, we'll just win when we really have to, and then we won't do that. So, it's funny to see, especially that I think Pumas is the real deal. A lot of people kind of give him the start and now playing Nico Castillo. I threw out a stat in there that said, I think Pumas hasn't won a game if Nico Castillo didn't score in 10 or 11, I think it was, matches. And here we go. Nico Castillo not scoring. The Spaniard was able to get the goal. Just overall, Pumas in good shape and not worried about Tigres, right?
I think the big talking point, other than Nahuel Guzman losing his hat, because that was the talking point for me.
We did talk for 20 minutes about that.
Yeah, we did talk for 20 minutes about that. But I think the big talking point was just that, like we've talked about it beforehand, it's just that, if Nico Castillo is going to score, then who is? Well, Alostiza and Barrera stepped up. Barrera got the 2 assists. Alostiza stepped up. You had Alejandro Ribas, forgot his name for a second, got the first goal for Pumas. So I think that's a great sign for the team, and especially since we didn't really think that they were going to do that well this season. I would have been that surprised if they didn't make it back into the top 8, but they've really exceeded expectations so far. And having someone like Alostisa has proven to be such a key figure for the team. Has really helped them out.
Who would have thought?
I think the Ribas signing is big too. You know, they needed a player to kind of replace Veron, and despite the fact that he's, you know, not just the direct replacement in some ways, I think he's really strengthened their defense. That's something they needed to do. And we talk about managers instilling confidence in the team, or maybe team players not pulling their weight necessarily, or giving it all for a manager. I think those are sort of cliche terms that maybe don't have that much meaning, but you do have a manager in Patiño that loves the club, that clearly cares about his players. And he said after, I think, week 2 or week 3, when they were top of the table, no, we haven't done anything yet. The message is hard work and confidence, hard work and confidence, hard work and confidence. And I think you're seeing that manifest itself. You know, the Alustiza goal wasn't tactically brilliant, just a ball over the top that Guzman, maybe because the hat comes out too fast, saw something in the shadows, something like that. But, you know, they score the goal, they win the game. And I think this is a Pumas team where, even if they're not sitting still and toward, you know, 1-2 seed at the end, I think they're making the Liga, which is a hell of a lot better than sitting in dead last place like they were last tournament.
Yeah, I'd say 2 quick things. I think that, you know, each of you picked out a player there. I'd say Marcelo Diaz. Yeah. I think he's really, especially this season, he's shown the obvious quality that he's got, you know, as part of the 2 Copa America winning teams with Chile. I think that, but I'm not convinced by I think Barrera as well, by the way, you know, 2 assists the other day as well. I'd written him off, mate, completely with all the injuries he's had. But fair play to him, and that's a massive achievement to come back from so many injuries in his career, and, you know, be back starting week in, week out now for Pumas. So, but I'm not 100% convinced. I'm not going to lie. I think they're overachieving right now. That's not saying that they're not going to make the playoffs, but I see them on the fringe of the playoffs rather than kind of where they are now, right at the top. But yeah, that's just me.
It's Pumas.
No, I mean, but to be fair, they've definitely improved. Obviously, Arribas has been, you know, they've got a leader in the defense now, because the other defenders are not 100% convinced by Quintana, Van Rankin, Fuentes, and even the goalkeeper Saldivar, who's played well this season. But I'm still not. I'm still waiting. You know,
the other weird thing is the fact that they've beat really good teams, right? Or they've gotten results against really good teams in America and Tigres, and then struggled against Lobos Buap. So you do wonder, what was the disconnect there? I think that despite Alustiza and Barrera both looking good, I think they are still overly dependent on Castillo. So I'm in agreement with you, Tom, that maybe they're not still the number 1 or number 2 team. But like I said, I mean, they've improved a lot. I think they've come a long way from last tournament.
No, very good. Definitely in what we saw in that Tigres. All right, what else around the league? Leon or Tigres? Go ahead. Let's talk about Tigres.
No, I was just gonna say, you know, going back to that league thing that I did, where I think Tigres is like 3rd or something. But the thing that annoys me about Tigres is it's like they just know. It's like they're so good now that they don't even wake up until like midway through the regular season. They don't even do like a proper preseason, and they use the first few weeks of the season just to get up to kind of where they should be physically.
Maybe that's their secret.
It's tough too after the final. I mean, you know, like you had the final, then you had Christmas, and then it was like, okay, it's the preseason and go. You know, if you weren't playing the final, you needed to get back to work. But I mean, at some point, these guys got to chill with their families and rest their legs a little bit. So, but that's too, because teams, right? They almost always do this. You're like, they're sitting 7th in week 10, and you're like, are they even going to make the playoffs? And all of a sudden, they're the 2 seed and they're winning the tournament. So.
It just annoys me, because I think this team's got even more potential, and I'd just love to, if they had to win week in, week out, you know what I mean, to see how they'd go about it and stuff, rather than what we've got now, which is just like, you've got this really, really good team, for me still the best team in the league, and they're just
don't you think they could do that this year in maybe the CCL? Because I mean, they've never won it as a club. Monterrey has won it 3 times or whatever. You know, there's the rivalry thing, and And this is a year where I think it's going to be packed into less time. Tom, do you think maybe Tuca is going to give more credit than he has in past years to the international player? Or are we just going to see the same thing where they just sleepwalk through it?
No, Tigre is 100% in that.
I think they're going for it. I think
100%.
Luca did say that he wants to retire by 2020. So I think this is something else.
He backtracked today. He said 2021. He said, "Hey, you know what?" He said, "I'm actually signed through 2021." And it's like, wait a second, man.
What he said? I missed that, but I'm also not surprised.
Yeah, no, but the CONCACAF Champions League massive for Tigres, and there's a lot of pressure on them. There's big pressure on this institution to do something because they lost the last final, they lost the final of the Copa Libertadores, and I think if you look at the rivalry Monterrey, that's the thing that the Monterrey fans pick up on, that they've won. What is it? The three CONCACAF titles
in the CCL era.
Yep. Yeah, Tigres have got nothing to show for it, and so Tigres is absolutely desperate for it, and I'd love to see Tigres at the Club World Cup as well.
Yeah, I think that's where we're all. In fact, still Pachuca taking it and then doing. Pachuca did okay. It wasn't the greatest, but we'll see what's at. We're approaching already a little bit over, but we'll continue a few more minutes if you're staying on with us. Leon, obviously, my team. It's funny that you mentioned it's like they want to turn it on. We know we're good. I feel Leon does that every season, but they're not that good. Like, they'll just go like all the players really. And when I looked at down what's happening with it, if I have to write an article, if I had to do something, the players are just not playing well, and they're not motivated, or there's something there. I mean, because it's not that same Leon that we saw at the end of the season, and even at the beginning when there was something there. Don't know what's going on the last two games. The refuerzos at the same time has also been there, where they're looking out to try to bring these guys in, and they're still not playing. The guys that they brought in, and then mainly, if I really have to pinpoint, not to everybody's fault, but I look back at all the goals. Yarbrough's not playing well. Yarbrough has had some horrible mistakes, and usually you have 1, 2, but he had, I think, 3 against Monterrey. Necaxa, it's just like it feels like there's one player that cannot really just kind of let it go is the keeper, and that's where I feel where it's at. Interested to see what they're gonna do. Obviously, Landon coming in, the hype might be able to help out. In that sense, I don't know if he's gonna help out as much, but at the same time, we've seen Leon get plummeted 5-0, 4-0 the next 2 games, and then all of a sudden they try to make the jump. Panzas Verdes is what they call them. It's mostly like a panzazo trying to get into the playoffs, barely making it every single time. There's my analysis.
Also, Leon's defense. I mean, they got Fernando Navarro got a red in the first half, and any team that goes down to 10 men against Monterrey. Against
Necaxa. That's the thing. This game at Monterrey you can excuse, but the Necaxa game at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Necaxa, how many goals has Necaxa scored? And then all of a sudden, boom, at home.
But that is the game against Monterrey. Yeah, that makes little sense. But yeah, the Necaxa one, that's a perplexing one, man. That's definitely the strange one.
Real quick, Landon Donovan, I think he's a nice piece. I know you're not in. I know that he's not going to save you. I think he can be a fun sub. I think he can come in games that maybe you need a little boost in. You're tied, maybe you're winning. You need. But I think a lot of it. Yarbrough isn't playing well, but to defend my fellow Texan in some respects, he's getting a lot of shots on him too, and that's because of what's happening in front of him.
The Ochoa effect.
So put Landon in net, right? You got to put Landon in net. Give him the gloves. See what he can do.
Let's see.
Yeah, we're gonna say with Leon. The concern for me is that this is largely the same squad that under Luis Fernando Tena started really well and just completely nosedived. Under Torrente started really well, and maybe for a little bit longer and then nosedived. And I'm just wondering what's going on here now. 2 games like this, like horrible results. Can Gustavo Diaz turn it around? Because he needs a reaction. I think it's really clear that on Saturday against Puebla, he needs to see a reaction from his team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
A weirdly good Puebla.
Yeah, Mesa doing great things.
I've seen a tweet on over the weekend just going, is Puebla actually good now? like I don't know. I don't even know how to answer that question.
Puebla did struggle against Tijuana a couple weeks back, and it looked like Puebla. And I was like, okay, this is a Puebla I recognize, but they have shown some weaknesses this season. I mean, maybe not as much as they usually do, but over in the Estadio Caliente, they definitely did.
A quick one on Monterrey. Obviously, we know all about them, but the only difference in the starting 11 this season has been Ponchito Gonzalez, who's earned his spot. I saw him against Chivas the weekend before last. Very impressed. He scored a goal. He scored another goal this time around. And, going back to when we're talking about Giovanni Dos Santos, the left-footed aspect of this Mexican national team, I'm sure Juan Carlos Osorio is going to be looking very, very closely at Ponchito Gonzalez if he keeps up this form between now and the March call-up, because he's a player for me who he had quality at youth level. He did well at Atlas initially, went to Monterrey, sat on the bench for a while, and now he seems to have, I don't know, he's clicked into gear. He seems to be more mature now, and it's looking good for him.
I mean, hopefully this is the season where it does happen, because I feel like we've been waiting for this for quite some time with Ponchito. This is someone that we for years now that we've been thinking that, like, all right, when is he going to step? There's a huge promise for not only like within the Liga MX, but also for the national team potentially. So I am excited. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that he does really start hitting those expectations that we had for him a while back, and maybe this will finally be the season where he starts playing well regularly and
keeping
consistently.
Carlos Sanchez out of the team at the minute, and that's a good sign.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Any more talks? Atlas Cruz Azul.
Atlas first win. I was at that game. I'm not sure about him still. I don't know.
It really takes a lot.
We'll see with Atlas. I'm not convinced though. I don't know. Romano, he started with a back five and then switched it to a back four, and it almost instantly improved the team because that's what they've been playing under Profe Cruz. But yeah, I'm not convinced by Atlas right now. We'll see though. We'll see.
It's funny because the teams that do well, we're not convinced, and the teams that are supposed to do well, we're not convinced. Like Tigres are just not convincing us until they want to. Monterrey,
we're skeptics.
Monterrey convinced me.
No, but you know what? I was really disappointed. I knew it was going to happen, but when Atlas hired Romano, no disrespect to him personally, I covered him in Tijuana for a bit. He was a fine professional, but man, it's his third time with Atlas. What do you think is going to be different this time around? Like you got to the Liga once, so if that's your only goal, then fine. But I just thought it showed a little bit of a lack of ambition. Lobos blew up, not doing that well. But Puente, is the hot seat. The hot seat's on him as one of the only young Mexican managers who's going right now. So if Romano turns it around, I'll eat my words. But if not, if you're gonna crash out of the Liga anyway and have a bad tournament, might as well do, in my opinion, with a 39-year-old Mexican former player who has some ambition. Maybe there's nobody out there, but I was just frustrated by that.
Yeah, I mean, no manager really symbolizes that another boring Liga MX coach from the Liga MX coaching cycle more to me than Romano. It's just I'm not sure who really got excited by that.
I mean, he lives in Guadalajara as well. He lives at Andares, so every day you can actually go and see him when he wasn't the Atlas coach. He just sit there in the cafes with his coaching staff and just talking football, and that's what he does, and he's just waiting for a job, just waiting for a job. So yeah, but yeah, going back to Atlas, because I've got this theory that Atlas potentially could be the kind of coolest, hippest team in Liga MX in many ways. They've got such a exciting fan base. I mean, they've got a lot of the raw elements to be a really, really good team, and I'm not saying a Club America. But I mean, they've got 25,000 fans there that'll go whatever happens. It doesn't matter how bad they are. They've got a history of playing good football. They've got a history of producing young players, and a lot of teams in Liga MX don't have an identity like that. What the problem is now with Atlas is that I don't know which direction they want to go with it all, because they play some of the young players and it doesn't quite work. But they take so many.
Rafa Marquez.
Jason.
Yeah, but they take so many gambles in the market as well. I mean, Big Cliff was a gamble. I mean, bringing him in and you don't know how it's going to turn out. It turned out well as it turns out. Ravel Morrison, it seems to be okay. But then Angelo Henriquez hasn't started well at all. That Gomez guy comes in. I mean, they're going for these players that, because they don't want to pay the big money, they're going for players that they brought in a player from Puerto Rico. Was it Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic? I mean, they're trying to go about it differently, and it's just hit and miss. And I don't know where they're going. You know what I mean? And I think the Romano appointment sums that up.
Penny wise, pound foolish.
I don't think I've ever disagreed more than what you just said, Tom. Atlas is could be the hippest. Atlas is the saddest team.
Nah, but I could see Atlas being hipster. You know, it's like anti-Chivas. You know, Chivas is the cool mainstream thing. Atlas is like the, you know, like underground. Like,
Atlas is that old guy that's like, we used to do it a long time ago, and
I don't know.
There's no way that guy's hip. Anyway, good takeaway from there. Cruz Azul is like, we think about like what's a sad team, Cruz Azul, but you know it's funny when you look at that Liga MX. You know, if it was a European season, I think Cruz Azul like has had a great season like 3-4 years ago. If you did the whole points thing, I remember Jason talking about that they would be number 1 or something like that. Cruz Azul always kind of having that great full year season, but not necessarily short seasons that we look at that. So, but Atlas being the hippest team, Tom,
not right now.
On paper. How many other teams can guarantee 25,000 that are in one of the biggest cities that have got a history of playing good football? That one of the founders of the league.
Okay, not the okay.
Last time I remember Atlas being cool was when Guardiola was there. That's when I remember watching.
I'm not saying they are. I'm saying potentially they could be.
Okay.
I mean, Tigres have Rob Schneider, and he is the epitome of cool. So let's say that.
Hey, I tell you what, Tigres were very similar to Atlas going back a few years. Fighting relegation all the time, managers coming in and out, no identity.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that.
Similar hardcore support.
We went a little bit overboard. We had lots and lots of topics. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying with us. And obviously, you know, we like to bring you all the conversations and the talks of Mexican football. We'll plug one more plug for the Patreon page. I have a great show on Thursday for you guys. It's recorded, and then lots of other extra. Join us next week on our Liga MX and Chill. We'll try to do that every weekend. You know, just turn on the volume and listen to us. And if you have any questions, we interact with you guys and a bunch of different topics while we're playing in there. I want to thank our guest, Mr. John Arnold, for taking the time. We've John and Tom and I, Cesar, we have great times at the Mexican national team games, and he's gonna turn on the light one more time.
Yeah, there we go.
Because that's what he says. It's the live part. Thank you to Jason, our producer of the show, and then also Amy, who is out there tweeting away on our social media channel. There it is. It's purple right now. Well, one last shot. We'll give it to Mr. John Arnold to end the show for us, and keep that Jonathan Gonzalez prediction that he's going to the World Cup and being the Julian Green of Juan Carlos Osorio.
Whoa.
Bloody hell.
Go ahead, John.
No, you're not just condemned him. Oh, you're not just condemned Jonathan Gonzalez's whole career.
Jonathan Gonzalez, Russia 2018.
All right.
Boom.
There it is. Guys, have a wonderful night. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the Mexican Soccer Show. Hasta la próxima.